Well, show me your breakdancing moves, Brandon. Do you have any new breakdancing moves?
Yeah, let's see.
Let's see.
I
learned a couple.
Australia's
Show me what you learned.
has an opening
Show me what you learned.
on their Olympic team.
What'd you learn?
I learned the, well, I can try to do
Show us a mini version.
I have something called, we know Ray Gun does the Australian, like, kangaroo.
Yeah.
Well, I've got the frog hop.
Yeah.
Hello! Hello! Hello!
Hello.
Hello and welcome to Bardic Aggravation. I'm Brandon, this is Kent, and that's Rick. And today we're going to do something a little different
Different than what?
than our waist class comparison.
Waist
Than-
class?
Than our class comparison videos. We're going to talk about the weapons customization system in DC20.
Yes, we are.
How you can make your own custom weapons, something that's cool and unique to just you.
Or anybody that makes it just like you.
True.
You've seen our Ancestries video. We did that with that. You see all the Druid Wild shape. You can do the same thing in this game with your weapons and your armor, but that'll be a different video. So, your sword can be different than his sword, and his sword, and your bow can be. So, we did what you can see this coming. We each made a different sword, and we each made our own little special weapon. So, you guys can see it's the point buy system, just like with the traits for your Ancestries and your familiar.
Yeah.
And which we haven't done the warlock yet, but you'll see in that one, and your wild shape. So, yeah, you can customize your own weapon. How cool is that? And we're going to show you how to do it. If you just shut up.
And
Can't say that to the audience. All right, let's start with the sword.
Sword?
It's everybody's.
Is it sword or sword?
It's spelled sword. It's a sword. People are just too lazy to pronounce the W, and I get it. I am too.
I'll take S words for 100, Jack.
With no W's, please. Every weapon, if you don't customize, has a style, a passive thing that it can do, whether it's your sword or your hammer, your axe, your glaive, your whip, all that stuff. They have a style they can do and a weapon, a damage type, like slashing, bludgeoning, you know all that, piercing. So when you make your own custom weapon, you can take a weapon style from any other weapon to put it onto your, so you don't have to take the sword style, which is so the sword, if you just leave the sword alone, it does +1 to anybody who's exposed. Is that it?
Yes, exposed.
So
They're exposed.
What does exposed mean? Gotta keep reminding him.
Exposed means attack have advantage against them.
Attack have advantage.
Attacks
have advantage.
Attacks have advantage against the person who has exposed.
Right. So normally you're wielding a sword and you hit somebody, you get +1 damage. That if they have that condition. But I'm assuming your sword didn't take that style, did it? What style did you put on your sword?
I totally flipped it around. I took chained, the style chained.
The child. There's a type of weapon called chained.
Chained!
That would be your, bolas and your chain whips and your meteor hammers and those things. So he's taking the style of that weapon to put onto his sword. And what would that be?
I'm gonna pump that right on there, and my attacks ignore shields and half cover. And I deal +1 damage against targets that are wielding a shield or have that half cover.
So that's what his sword can do.
So if you pull that shield up and I'm coming down with my sword, I'm going to hit you hard.
So each weapon, if you just take it as is, usually gets 2 to 3, sometimes 4 different properties, whether that's thrown, whether that's heavy, two-handed, these things,
all
versatile.
those fun things.
So these are the kind of properties, you use them from D&D. But every weapon there's a lot more in DC20, and you can add 2 of these to your weapon from scratch.
Yes.
So what properties did you take?
So I took heavy.
Okay, what does that mean?
Which means it's a heavy weapon. It just requires 2 hands to hit it, and I get a +1 damage with that.
Okay.
So I'm using 2 hands to hit
no matter
this.
what?
No matter
+1
what.
damage?
Yep, plus weapons damage increases by 1. Also,
Yes.
I took 2-handed, so I could use this weapon 2-handed. It gives me a -1, so I gain 1 point back, so I can pick a different property.
So if you have
It's
a
a
property
negative.
that gives you a -1
negative.
that buys you a point back. So
Exactly.
what's the downside of having a two-handed weapon though? Why is that a penalty?
I can't use anything else. I can't have a shield or anything else on any hand. I always have to have these. It's not a versatile weapon. I can't use it one-handed.
Right.
I have to have two hands on this to do that amount of damage. And I feel like if I'm smashing into shields and hitting people hard and heavy, I need my two hands on it. It only makes sense to give myself that disadvantage.
So you're locking yourself into only using two hands on that sword.
Yes, always two hands.
It's because it's such a heavy bastard.
Wow, we're gonna just over-explain this into the ground.
And then my last +1, I added impact. I get +1 on heavy hits. That's all. So my sword all together, giant sword, two hands, which gives me a -1. So I have 3 properties I can pick. I took heavy, which took 2, which gives me +1 damage, and I took impact, which gives me that heavy hit.
So it does 1 extra damage on any hit,
Yes.
and 2 if somebody's wearing a shield.
No, I just ignore shields. I don't do extra damage. I ignore them. It says attacks ignore shields and half cover. Oh, and you deal 1 damage to that target that are wielding shields or behind half cover. It's the rest of it.
So if I'm understanding Rick correctly, which rarely,
He does.
you're getting +1 damage with this sword on every single hit, but if you're hitting somebody with a shield that's behind cover, you're getting +2 damage
Another
on top
plus,
of it. So
yes.
that's 3 damage total for those.
Yes. And it's two-handed, so I'm not going to be able to use a shield or anything like that, but I am doing as much as I can.
All right.
I feel like this sword is like just bashing through things. Maybe a barbarian sword would be pretty cool.
I'm bored of your sword. What's your sword?
My sword is called Excalibur.
Okay, that's great. Very proud of you.
Excalibur. It's Excalibur.
Look what you've done. You've reached the end of Brandon's patience. That's nearly impossible. All right, tell us about your sword, Brandon.
Tell
For
us
God's
about
sake.
your sword, Brandon.
Well, my sword, I did something a little different.
Ooh.
So I was outside of the box on this one. You think traditionally as a sword as a slashing implement, right? Mm-hmm. But for me, my short sword is going to have the hammer style,
So
right?
you chose the style of hammer. What is the hammer style?
It's bludgeoning damage. Mm-hmm. It gives you +1 damage to creatures who are dazed or petrified.
How's it doing bludgeoning damage as a blade?
So here's where I thought outside of the box.
Okay.
So I got my sword
Here's you just made up a bunch of silly crap
from
that
From
makes
the-
no sense.
from the worst blacksmith ever. It's a super dull, heavy blade, right? All it is like
It's a cubic
think
metal
about-
with a handle.
think about it as like a 2-pound hammer, but not a hammer, right? It's, you can yeah, whatever.
All right, what else does your stupid sword do?
So,
Sword.
the properties I gave it, right, are reach. So
Okay.
it extends my reach with that short sword by 1.
How?
It was okay. So it wasn't a finished product.
Is it on like a yo-yo string?
No.
How do you extend the reach of a
has
short
alerts,
sword?
right?
No.
Are you a bugbear?
So it is unfinished product by the blacksmith. Okay,
Okay.
it's the worst blade ever.
I'm with
So
you so
instead of it being a short sword blade, like that's usually like whatever this long, it's just a little bit longer.
So it's not quite a long sword.
No,
it's a short sword.
it wasn't. It
It's
was
a medium sword.
Yeah, it wasn't finished.
It's
Okay,
medium sword.
It was gonna be a short sword, but the material was only hammered out.
If it's long enough to reach an extra space, which is 5 feet,
I'm gonna call it a short sword, so that way my enemies don't know what I'm packing.
that they'd be able to look right at it and judge for themselves how long or short
He
it
has a
is.
file with some tape around it.
Oh, I know.
Do it.
It's got a big sticker on it that says short sword. Yeah. So when they see it, even though it's really long, they'll be like, "Oh no, that's a short sword." It says so right on the
Yeah,
label.
that's great.
He can't hit us 5 feet away.
Exactly. It's a short sword, clearly.
And because it's semi heavy, it's not heavy like yours,
Right.
but it's unwieldy. So like the balance is way off. Mm-hmm. So that's a negative
Worst
property.
blacksmith ever.
So that means I have disadvantage on attacks
Within 1 square?
within 1 space of me.
So yeah, I was gonna say finish the sentence.
I was working on it. This was
I have disadvantage on attacks. That sounds great.
within 1 space of me.
Within 1 space.
So it's like
So you have to stay far away.
so I have to stay. That's why I took the reach with it. You know, it's just so unbalanced and weird. That's a negative trait. So I have one more thing I can do.
Of course. What is it?
It's versatile. When you have the versatile property, When you
Yes.
use it with two hands, it gives you a +2 to hit.
Right.
So that's you can use it one or two-handed, but when you use it two-handed, it gives you that +2. I have the worst short sword known to man.
Because it's not even a short sword.
It's a hammer. It does bludgeoning, which means I have
Not a hammer. It is hammer style.
hammer style. Sorry. Oh my god. Such a
blunt
stickler.
Misinformation everywhere.
Blunt sword.
It's a blunt sword.
Blunt.
Yes.
There you go. It's a blunt sword.
Blunt sword.
It's a practice sword.
Yes. That I can use with reach, so with one extra space. It's unwieldy, so I have disadvantage on attacks that are within one space of me.
It's unwieldy.
Unwieldy. I also can use it two-handed to get that extra +2 on the attack.
All right.
It's versatile.
You're gonna need that with that disadvantage sometimes too.
It's the worst sword known to man. I deal +1 damage to creatures who are dazed or
Confused.
yes,
Petrified.
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 Every time I would go into battle with the worst sword known to man, I would exclaim, "It's hammer time!"
So, reach. Disadvantage if somebody's standing within one space of you.
Correct.
And you can do extra +2 to hit if you wield it with two hands.
Correct.
And +1 damage against dazed and petrified.
Correct.
All right, interesting. So my sword
Sword.
is
S words.
it's medium to long. I'm gonna call it because it's not it's not short. Neither is his. But I took because I decided I don't really do defense a lot, so I was like, let's try it here. I gave it the guard print property, which gives me, if I'm wielding this weapon, I get a +1 to my physical defense. So my armor class get a +1 just for holding the weapon because I can. Fuck you.
You're blocking. Yeah, you're blocking. Parrying maybe.
It's a blocking weapon as a sword, so I can parry and I can attack.
Yes.
And then I took, it's called multifaceted, which means I get to pick two weapon styles for this weapon.
Excuse me.
And when you attack with the weapon, you decide before the attack which style you're using for that particular attack. Think of it like if you let's say I didn't do this, but let's say you have a very sharp sword and you want to do slashing damage, but then you're hitting somebody who's petrified or something and you want to do bludgeoning. So you just flip the sword on its side and smack them with the flat of the blade. That's kind of the idea here. I took the weapon style of the axe, so that does slashing damage, so that's using the blade,
Right.
and it's +1 versus anybody who has the bleeding condition. The bleeding means they're bleeding and they're losing 1 hit point every turn unless somebody gives them a medic. And then I took the spear one where that's the spear property is, and that property, style, is if you move 2 spaces immediately before you attack, you do +1 damage, or to anybody who happens to be mounted. I don't expect that to come up very often, but you never know when you're going to run into one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse.
You could also be in a brothel.
So that's +1 piercing damage, and I don't have disadvantage if I decide to fight with this thing underwater. So you got to picture this is more like a thinner, it's not a rapier, but it's a thinner blade, kind of between a sword and a rapier, so I can slash with it or I can stab with it.
So it's very light.
Yeah, it's very, very, I'd say versatile, but it's not one or two-handed. I don't have that property. So basically my sword, I can slash, I can stab if I move 2 spaces, or I can block with it, which is always on. I don't have to do anything for that to get the +1
always
physical
there.
defense. It's just always there if I'm holding the weapon. They're just assuming that, of course, you're blocking.
Yeah.
Because, you look like that kind of fighter.
It's weird to be blocking with a light sword.
Are you kidding me? After that sword you just described to us, you're going to call my sword weird?
I'm just saying it. I can't see it as a blocking sword.
Absolutely. I don't have to block. I can knock their weapon. I can try to disarm them. All
Just a little
kinds.
parry, just a little.
My physical defense.
Yeah, just a
Maybe
little.
it's got a guard. So maybe it's got a guard here, and I can,
Well, okay. All right. You made sense of it.
you be quiet. So my third weapon, that's not your conventional type of weapon. It's the one I'm using in the game that we play. You kind of heard me do a little bit about it in the Spellblade thing because I'm playing the Spellblade. His weapon is the Meteor hammer.
Ooh.
For those of you that don't know, it's the long chain with the spiked or flashing ball on the end, and so fun. So what I did is I gave it the whip style, which is slashing damage. So he has little like razor blades on the end of it. Not razor blades, really, just blades. But yeah, thin blades. It does +1 damage to anybody who is further than 1 space from me. So I don't want to get up close and personal with anybody. I want to stay at least 1 space away, and then I get +1 damage on them.
All right.
And then the property I took is reach. So that means obviously I can, he had that with his thing, I can attack people from further than 1 space away. Reach edge, +1 space. Then I took the impact, which is +1 again, heavy and brutal hits. You heard that with his thing. So that's a good one. So whenever I attack somebody who is 10 feet away from me, that's a +1 damage. So I already did 1 damage for the weapon, +1 for that. And if I get the brutal heavy hit, that's another +1 for that. So that's a lot of fun. Same thing with the boosting. If you got a commander that can boost it, or you
This
get a
doesn't
help
even
die.
count maneuvers.
No, these are no maneuvers.
I mean, this
just the
isn't
weapon.
This is just a weapon, because once you pile on the maneuvers, this thing gets out of hand.
Because I usually use that maneuver with it. The
Whirlwind.
well, that's a technique.
Oh, it's a technique.
So at
Okay,
level
you're
1,
counting.
well, you got the 3 attack. You got reach. You got
Power and
sweet power. The power
Power
one.
attack.
So that adds another +1 to it. So usually I'm doing between 4 to 5
Yeah.
points of damage with this thing per round. And then when you get those extra hits because the commander, if he helps me out or there's something else going on,
Then
I can get
advantage
7.
hits. Yeah, you start going crazy.
It's fun. It's a lot of fun. So that's my very special weapon.
That is a very special weapon.
It's just visually fun. It's a meteor hammer. Come on.
I think you just like saying it. I did another thing, like you did a Kill Bill Meteor Hammer, something super cool.
Right. Oh, you did a movie weapon?
Oh yeah, I did Krull.
Krull.
Remember Krull when you were a child? It's like a
I don't know if I ever saw
it's like
that.
a star. It's got spikes on the end of it. He whips it around.
I have no idea what that is.
So I took the bolos, which are in there. Bolos.
That's your style?
Bolos.
Bolos.
I kind of followed how the bolos are made because it's a special weapon, so it didn't have specific properties. So the style I took was spear.
Okay.
So if I take 2 extra steps, I get 1 damage. So I'm assuming this thing, I'm going to throw it far. So I'm going to take 2 steps and throw it, which is going to give me extra damage. I have the thrown, since it's a ranged weapon. Unwieldy, which is going to give me a -1, so I have disadvantage of people within 1 space of me. Obviously, it's a thrown weapon. I'm not going to fight with it. I have a sword for that. I added special property return. So if I miss a hit, it's going to come right back to my hand, like a boomerang.
That's kind of cool.
So if I throw it around, miss you, it's coming right back to my hand. But if I do hit you, I'm going to do impact, which is an extra damage. So I'm going to do more damage on a heavy hit.
This sounds like a really well-rounded weapon.
So it's going to be weird. It's going to be really weird. I'm going to take 2 steps and try to hit. My goal of this was to hit somebody who's the wizard standing at the back. Right? I want to run up and just and so spin around and hit him. I figured I'd make a spell blade, so even if I do hit, I can return this thing back to my hand. Because a spell blade can actually just do that. They can recall their weapon right to their hand no matter what.
As long as it's got to be within 20 spaces, which you should be fine.
20 spaces. I'm not going to throw it that far. I would know that, right? I'd be like... So I'm not fighting anybody up close with this
You
thing.
can
'Cause This is a
definitely
giant...
call it.
It's a
It
giant...
doesn't even have that range.
boomerang with like blades on the end of it. So I'm not going to be fighting anybody up close with it. I'm going to run and throw it, get that extra damage.
Sounds cool.
That's
Crawl.
lovely.
That sounds pretty
What
cool.
about yours?
A concealable ice pick.
He's Jack the Ripper.
But not like a pick, not like a one of those like
Lobotomy picks?
yeah, no. I'm thinking more like the climbing picks, right? Ones that you can just It's got
Then why don't you just say a climbing pick instead of an ice pick?
because I want it to be a nice pick. A nice pick.
It's for climbing up ice?
A nice pick. The actual weapon is going to be like a old school climbing ice pick kind of thing. Conceal. Well, we'll get to that. Fuck.
Don't be so hard on yourself.
So I took the weapon style, melee weapon style of pick, obviously, because that is the overall theme of my weapon. It does piercing damage and does +1 to creatures who are impaired. Being impaired means you have disadvantage on physical checks. So that's my weapon style, is the pick. And then my properties that I took. I was thinking I'm a rogue, so this is going to be concealed weapon. I took the concealed property.
Sure.
That means I have advantage on my first attack with this concealed weapon on the creature in every on one creature every round. I don't know. It's
One creature,
confusing.
one time.
Against each
In the
creature
closet.
once per combat. So if
You can only gain this benefit once per creature, but if the weapon's already out, do you have to conceal it and pull it back out?
and just ice pick and
Die.
make advantage attack, maybe take them out.
That's
You know?
so mean.
So in addition to the concealable, right?
Right. You're right.
Property.
Yes.
I also took the toss property.
Ah.
So toss this ice pick as a concealed weapon, and it'll go and hopefully hit them right in the forehead. And what this does
Call it shot.
is I can throw this weapon. I can throw this melee weapon as a ranged attack. It would be considered still a melee attack at 5 to 10. So between 5 and 10 space. Or yeah, I have a range with this little melee martial attack. Ranged martial attack.
Ranged melee martial.
You get the idea.
So yeah, it's a throwable ice pick.
Very cool.
That'll stick right in the forehead. It'll look really cool on their crime scene photo. Nice pick killer.
Nice stick.
I'm a nice pick killer.
So there you go. This was simple, but we just wanted to show you that you can customize your weapon, which is great because how many times you're playing D&D and it's like, all right, people only pick their weapons really for the damage in that, don't they?
You're done.
That doesn't do
If you pick the
anything
damage, you don't
extra.
care.
Just this does more damage, and it's got a couple little different things.
I need a
like-
scimitar because it does more damage.
Yeah.
It's 2 more damage than a sword or whatever.
So here you're just making it so it can fit your fighting style, it can fit your character's personality and or your class or your ancestry or whatever. It's yeah, you get the idea. It's fun. It's really fun. So you're customizing your ancestry. You're customizing your weapon. You can customize your armor. That's another video. You can customize your class. There's nothing you can't customize, is there? So
No.
far you can't customize your spells. Your spells are your spells, but you pick which ones you want.
We're not even out. The spells aren't even out yet, really.
You can do spell enhancements. Why wouldn't you play a game that's so much more customizable? Because we're all role playing, right? We're role playing a character. That's what these games are all about, unless you're just a dice math person and you don't care about the character.
Yeah.
But for most of us, I think this is the key. So you're going to have this character for a long time unless you get killed by doing something stupid. Don't you want to have it be as unique as it can be? Isn't that so much fun? Everybody gets character art done, right? Because they're like, this is my character looks like. That's so important to you. What about all this other stuff? Again, the PDF of this beta rules is linked down below. Grab this. Any subsequent versions that come out, the 9, the 10, the 12, the blah, 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 you're getting those for free on top. You just pay for it once. You're not going to have to buy each one separately.
Like,
And subscribe, please,
Jump on
because
here, man.
we're a new channel, and unless you're watching this in the future, we'll be blown up huge. But right now, we're a new channel, and
Fucking
it
huge.
would be very helpful.
Please feel free to leave us a comment too. We like seeing all the different comments. Good,
Yeah.
bad, ugly, yes, no.
You can
maybe
criticize us, give us some unsolicited advice, because now I'm asking for it. It's not unsolicited, is it? We talked a lot about conditions today, because weapons
Conditions,
have
oh my
stuff. So
gosh.
if you want to really get a deep dive into conditions, we'll put the link to Claudio Wild's channel. He has a video on conditions. All his videos are actually very informative.
it's great. I keep that up while we're playing, so if I want to hear about a condition, I can hear it exactly from him.
It's
He explains it very well.
Brandon can't read. He can't comprehend. He can read.
I
He
can
can't
read,
comprehend
yes.
at all. So he doesn't learn that way. He learns by somebody reading it out loud or explaining it to him, and then it stays in his brain. And so that's why
Bam.
channels like Claudio Wells are great for people like him that learn by hearing it. But if you're one of those, check it out. Bye.